Hey everyone, it's Alexander Robinson. Welcome to the channel, and welcome to J. Ward Month. We are now halfway through my series of double feature retro reviews, and for the month of June, I'll be tackling two movies based off cartoons created by J. Ward. One of them is a movie that I had on repeat at my house when I was a kid, and the other being a movie that my brother claims we've seen, but I have no memory of. But I'm going to kick this series off with the former of those two movies, and the former in question is George of the Jungle, which came out in 1997 and stars Brendan Fraser in the lead role. The movie follows a young man who, as a boy, was abandoned in Africa, but is raised among the apes, befriends an ape named Ape, and has a dog who is actually an elephant named Shep, and a bird companion named Tuki. So over the years, he's gained the reputation of being the white ape in Africa. However, he soon comes across a young woman named Ursula, played by Leslie Mann. The two of them form a connection, they fall in love, but things get complicated when Ursula's fiancé, Lyle, comes in, played by Haden Church, and George is temporarily plucked out of the organic jungle into the concrete jungle of San Francisco. Like I mentioned at the top of this video, this movie was pretty much on repeat at my house. I watched this VHS tape so many times that I think I wore it out. But the way I first saw this movie is actually very interesting. For those of you who may not have been around in 1997, or you just don't know this movie had its world premiere at the San Diego Wild Animal Park, and it was considered to be a big deal. They invited a bunch of people from LA, mostly industry people and guests, through a Amtrak train, shipped them all to San Diego, where they had the premiere of this movie at a theater that Disney actually built at the park. It was definitely an experience that truly stuck with me, being able to see a new movie in a really unique environment. And in doing research for this film, I thought, why didn't they just do this at Animal Kingdom? Like, why did Disney have to go to a completely different animal park altogether to do this premiere when they had Animal Kingdom all ready to go? Turns out this movie came out a year before Animal Kingdom opened, so that's why they couldn't. But had this movie been delayed or came out a year or two later, I guarantee you they would have had the premiere of George in the Jungle at Animal Kingdom. Anyway, it was an experience that I never forgot, and looking up old YouTube videos, or at least a YouTube video of this event, really took me back to where I was like, oh yeah, I remember this. I'll leave a link for that video in the description below. In terms of the actual movie itself, I loved it as a kid. I watched it several times over and over. I just couldn't get enough of it. But I haven't watched this movie in about 25 years, so I was wondering, in prep for this review, is this just one of these things where, yeah, I liked it as a kid, but as an adult, I think it's crap? Well, I can say after watching this movie as an adult, it's not as great as I remember it, but I think it's definitely charming in its own way. I did watch a few episodes of the original series before recording this video, and it's pretty much goofy as hell, and that's what this movie is. It's a pretty faithful adaptation of that original show, to the point where it is unapologetic in how silly it is. And I think the reason this movie works more than other movies that are just this relentlessly silly is because of Brendan Fraser. He is truly committed to being this not too bright king of the jungle, but still has a lot of charm to him. You have to remember that Brendan Fraser did a lot of really goofy roles. I mean, one of his very first movies, his second one actually, was Encino Man, which I think is a flat-out piece of shit. I saw it for the first time, I think 10 years ago, and I hate it. But Brendan Fraser was the best part about that movie. And this is definitely much better than Encino Man, and mainly because it has more charm. It doesn't feel as dumb as Encino Man was. Even in other movies where he's not playing a total goofball, like Still Breathing or The Mummy, he has a strong sense of charisma, and his chemistry with Leslie Mann in this movie is very believable. When we were first introduced to Leslie Mann, she is in an engagement with Haden Church, and you can clearly tell that she's not really into it. I mean, That's especially the case when he abandons her to be eaten by a lion before George comes in and saves her. And then immediately their chemistry is very believable. Not quite as electric as the chemistry between him and Rachel Weisz in The Mummy, but it's still really good and shows how much charm Brendan Fraser has. As for Leslie Mann, there's not much to say about her in terms of her performance as Ursula. She's just very bubbly and very positive. Thomas Haden Church's character, on the other hand, is such a douchebag. He's egotistical, he thinks himself above everyone else, he's a little racist, but a lot of the joy about this movie is seeing him get abused to no end. So with this movie being as silly as it is, there are definitely things that aren't going to work. Some jokes hit fine, others don't, but there's nothing that made me laugh out loud or just made me want to claw my own eyes out. Two examples of jokes that actually did work for me is when one of Lyle's goons is arguing with the narrator on what they should do next, and the narrator is, "I'm not going to tell you because I don't like you." And then the other goon's like, "Are you arguing with the narrator?" Like, there's just something so ridiculous about that it got a chuckle out of me. And then there's the sequence when George is speaking to all the other apes in, like, monkey noises. And what made me laugh about this moment is that throughout the entire movie, George is basically speaking not in broken English, but you can tell he's not really well spoken. But when he's talking to the apes and they subtitle his dialogue, it's Shakespearean. And I'm like, okay, that's funny. So those are some of the sillier jokes that worked for me. But then you have some sillier jokes that are just cheap and not funny at all. There's too many nut shots for my taste, and there's a moment when the elephant is about to pee on the goons who are locked up in a cage. They don't show it, but you see the elephant lift its leg, and all the bad guys are going, "No!" and then it cuts away. Bodily function jokes just don't really work for me all the time. Now, that being said, the moment earlier in the movie when Lyle falls face first into elephant shit got a laugh out at me. And it's not because he fell into elephant shit. It's because the characters are going on a trek through the jungle. He's at the very back getting whipped by plants and whatnot, and then he's like, I've had it, I'm the best looking, I'm leading, so I say we go this way, and then he instantly trips and falls into the poop, and like, that's karma right there. Not to mention that moment is followed by one of my favorite GIFs on the internet. Now comes the part where we throw our heads back and laugh. Ready? Ready! Ha 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 ha! So that's why that moment works for me. Not falling into poop, but everything surrounding that moment. There's some other moments that don't work for me in this movie, whether they be straight up cliches or Disney trying to modernize this movie rather than just kind of leaving it to be a straight-up adaptation of George of the Jungle. Ursula's mother is that stereotypical, like, snobby British mother who thinks she knows best for her daughter because she wants her to marry a wealthy man. Why was 1997 the year where snobby mothers wanted their daughters to marry wealthy men that they clearly don't like? That's a weird coincidence. But my favorite part of this character is that the father is as American as can be. He supports the choices that his daughter wants to make 100% because all he cares about is that she's happy, to the point where the husband actually says about the wife, "That woman is a pain in the ass." And he actually says ass, not pain in the butt. So that kind of caught me off guard rewatching this movie. I'm like, wait a minute, a Disney movie that's supposed to be more family friendly and they said ass? Huh, okay. I approve of that. And also, the movie really could have ended without George and Ursula holding their newborn son on Pride Rock. It's like, we get it, Disney. The Lion King came out not too long ago. I know you want to remind the world of how big of a phenomenon that was. You didn't need to do it to end this movie. And then, I don't even know what was up with the Vegas scene with Ape. That, like, why? That doesn't make any sense at all. But overall, despite those shortcomings, I found this to be pretty enjoyable as an adult. There were moments, admittedly, that were so silly that it got a laugh out of me. Not a hard laugh, but I was chuckling throughout. And also, I think a lot of the special effects are pretty good. The CG on the elephant Shep, for 1997 and for being such a comedic movie, is actually pretty convincing. The ape costumes created by Jim Henson's Creature Shop are clearly guys in ape suits, but the facial expressions are pretty good, and the articulation of the mouths whenever ape is talking is very well done. Now, before I give my rating for this movie, I'm going to address something that I know some of you might be thinking. How could you give this movie a free pass for being as relentlessly silly as it is, and yet you come so hard on the Despicable Me and Minion movies? And I'll tell you why. Because Despicable Me, every movie, they have a chance to kind of build upon themselves. They can keep the silly tone. I have no problem with that, but they don't do anything new with each continuous movie. It's literally the same thing we've seen over and over with no variety. This movie here is just a straight-up adaptation of an animated series that was ridiculous to begin with. Thus, I think it succeeded in being a faithful adaptation of that series. So that's why I would give George of the Jungle a pass over any of the Despicable Me movies, and yeah, I'll have more to say when this comes out in a couple weeks. So as for a rating, I'd say George of the Jungle is good, but it's not great. It is very charming. Brendan Fraser really carries this movie and makes it what it is. And I had fun. Would I give this a strong recommendation? No, I wouldn't. But while I did love this movie as a kid, I'm very pleased to say that this movie still managed to amuse me as an adult. And there you go. That's my review for George of the Jungle. I hope you enjoyed it. So check back in 2 weeks where I'll be talking about the other J. Ward movie that I had planned, one that I swear I have never seen before, and that would be The Adventures of Rocky and Bullwinkle. I have heard very interesting things about this movie. Some were kind of good, but most of them were pretty bad. So I have no idea what to expect from this movie. I could either come out of it thinking, yeah, that was a lovely surprise, or it could be the very worst movie that I review in this series of double feature retro reviews. So find out in 2 weeks, but before I take off, I want to give a special shout out to longtime viewer Ty Jensen for just becoming a YouTube member. Thank you so much for joining, and here's your name in the credits for the starter pack group. If you want to get early access to all of my videos a day before they're released to the public, you can join via YouTube memberships, and not only will you get your name credited right here, but I will give you a special shout out on the very next video after you join. And plus, the more people that join YouTube memberships, the more perks and tiers I can create. So I hope you guys consider that, but until next time, I want to know what you guys think about George of the Jungle. Whatever your opinions are, let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell button to get notifications. If you want to help support the channel even more, you can do so via YouTube memberships, and you can also follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Letterboxd, Threads, and my theme park and travel channel right here on YouTube. I'll see you guys in the next video, but until then, have a good day, and take care of yourselves.